Hello, everyone. It is time for another Magical Monday behind the curtain, meaning real talk about how I am practicing radical magic in my own life, what's up for me, what I'm sensing and feeling in the collective, who even knows, whatever wants to comment each week, but a personal version. So I want to name first that last week was a lot. So with the eclipse and full moon in Scorpio, everywhere I looked, and certainly also in my life, which is often the case, feels were really activated. And I found that we were invited to look at the feelings, feel the feelings, the stories, the fears, the grief, whatever it is, whatever your like favorite shit to avoid is, it was like the universe conspired to get us to see, sense, and feel those things. Now, I find for me, and it's taken years, decades of practice, the way to embrace those times of necessary alchemy most humanely is with a level of surrender and with a level of, it's like allowing. You can vote on not liking it while also allowing things to move. Emotions are just energy in motion. And there was a lot that wanted to move last week. And whether we realize it or not on a day-to-day basis, our conditioning invites us to suppress our authentic human emotions. There's no bad emotion. The only bad emotion is stuck emotion. And sometimes the collective, whether it's astrological energies, archetypally speaking, or our own individual lives that are always co-created, there will be the things we need to have happen to feel the things we need to feel for our highest good. So whatever was up for you last week, if stuff was up, perhaps it's helpful to get curious about like, what was I invited to feel? What was I invited to acknowledge? What maybe even desires was I confronted with that maybe I had not allowed to be a priority? Could be anything. So I want to name that. I was having my own alchemical journey with that. And last week I talked at the beginning of the week about me making magic with a new home. And I wondered if I was going to talk to you all about this today because I'm still so in it, but all the more reason to, right? Like real time, what this looks like and feels like to practice. So it's been close to, I guess, close to a month, maybe like close to 3 weeks since we put an offer in on a house. Now, as I mentioned before, we were not like expecting to buy a new house right now. If we had been only using logic, we would have been waiting until we looked better on paper, but the house found us. Magical thing number one is we don't get to control life from a left brain perspective all the time. So my husband and I decided to move forward in spite of, hesitation, concern, whatever, because it really felt right. So we've been in this process of exploring unique loan options, funding sources, all of these kinds of things that are somewhat out of the box, or finding people who understand why we look the way we do on paper, right? Like the working within a system, but finding the people, places, and options that are a little bit on the edge of that, right? So we have been riding this wave, y'all, and it's been so interesting to see what has come up because, we would find somebody and they would be like looking promising, and then something would happen and we'd realize, oh, this tiny detail means no. And we have some funky details, like my husband working with a family member. I have learned that's a red flag, and I get it, right? But anyway, little things like that are actual big things. So we've been riding this wave, and what it has invited me into, and this is what I want to share, is The Scorpio stuff it brought up for me is, am I really cared for? In the universal mother kind of energy, like, do my desires matter? Does what I want matter in the grand scheme of things? And so it's invited me to like move that energy. I'm great at looking for the better story. I'm great at orienting to the thoughts I want to think, all of those kinds of things. But the fact is, I still have stuff in my body, in my unconscious, in my metaphorical basement that needed to move. And so that had to get kicked around a little bit last week. I spent a day or two in some pretty hearty grief. And I navigated it by being careful not to dig into a story around that. I sort of like looked for the meaning I thought would serve me the best, or that felt like truth, and then moved on. And so that's another part of letting things move. I didn't feel grief and then get into a story about, my victimhood or something like that. I noticed grief and went, oh, that's interesting. I have grief in my body, or I have sadness around not honoring my own desires, or I am aware that I've betrayed myself by not allowing myself to stand for what I really want, or anticipatory rejection has kept me stuck, like all these things. So I would notice that and go, yeah, I don't choose that anymore. I feel it and I don't choose it. So it's been this process of, I use the word alchemy a lot when it comes to emotions, because it can be intense. It can be like very changeable, intense in one moment, light in the next. And it doesn't require any sort of mental health diagnosis. That's actually the way emotion likes to move through the body. I'm not saying that diagnoses are not a thing, but I'm saying it's also very human to have ebbs and flows of intensity and emotion. So as I've been allowing this sort of detoxification of suppressed stuff move through, and practicing compassion with myself, I've also realized, and this is a term I've used with my friends a lot, there's this faith fatigue that can happen. And in the past, I've talked about it like it's so hard to keep holding faith in the face of disappointment, rejection, the world we live in, whatever it might be. But what I've realized is I choose to be like an elite athlete in the endurance practice of faith. So just like if I wanted to be an ultra runner, which I don't, but if I wanted to do something really extreme in that way, like really powerful, and I really wanted to do it, I'm going to train. And so I've started viewing this as like, every single time I get tensed up, or every single time fear comes up, or every single time one of those stories comes up, I ask myself, how can you settle into a sense of faith? That doesn't mean control. I still have no idea what's going to happen with this house, y'all. I should know, I think, by the end of the week, but I woke up this morning thinking I was going to know by the end of today. So who knows? But I'm committed to riding these waves and to allowing my faith muscles to strengthen. And I keep saying, what is meant for us will be for us. And there is nothing that can get in the way. I'm not in charge of controlling it. I am in charge of participating. And so that's a real different energy, y'all. I don't have to know the outcome. I don't have to control the outcome. I just participate in the way that is mine to do. So last week that involved calling some people, sending some emails, doing some research. This week and last week too, really focusing on keeping my energy right, because my energy is really powerful, and so is yours. And then doing the next right thing without this like sticky, it's kind of like tentacles. That's why I'm doing this thing, attachment, I'll say, to outcome, because that isn't faith. That's the opposite of faith. When we say, oh yeah, I'm in faith, and we're like trying to pull the strings, it is like fake faith. And so there's something here around, and I'll probably have better words as this all unfolds, around what it is to truly hold open-palmed faith. Because my intention is fierce, And I talked about the intention magic making practice I'm doing every night in last week's, which got cut off on Instagram, but is on YouTube. And it's this commitment to the adventure without attachment to the ending. Because what I know is something is being built right now. It's being built within myself. It's being built within my partnership. It's being built in my relationship to magic and possibility, sort of on the divine and quantum level. And so regardless of outcome, I know that this investment is valuable. And I know that spending last weekend doing a bunch of stuff, you know, touching up paint on cabinets, pre-packing some things, even if it doesn't happen the way we want it to, we think it will, should, whatever, we are participating. And so there's this thing that can come up, and it came up for me, of like, I don't want to feel stupid. And I don't use that word a lot. If I do all this work and it doesn't happen. But guess what? It's still for a good cause. And who cares if it doesn't happen? Because if it doesn't happen, there's something else that wants to happen. So whatever you've got cooking in your life, I invite you to sit with how you're participating in that, how you're holding the vision, how you are putting your ego aside to move toward it, even knowing that you don't have control, perhaps, because control is an illusion. Good, bad news, y'all. And how are you being courageous in showing up for it, even as you relinquish control? This is big stuff, y'all. And these are like deep magic making muscles. So I hope that sharing this story serves and supports you, because there are a lot of people who talk about when magic like works, when it goes in the direction where someone thinks it should or will. But magic is also the process. It is the forging of a new way of being. It is a new way of relating to other humans and to the universe as a whole. And that happens through intention, but not rigid agenda. Until next week, y'all.